I was born Edith Ruth Ann Devlin on July 4th, 1869 in Woodbridge, Canada. My earliest memories all relate to a small white church in the English style. I was so small that I had to stand on the kneeling benches in order to see over the pews. But once I did that, I sang the hymns with all my heart. And when the minister said to us, "God will not allow you to depend on anyone but Him," I understood him perfectly. When I was just 4 years old, my father died. This put our family in a very difficult position financially. My mother's parents were very wealthy, but they had not approved of her marriage, so they wouldn't help except very little, and even that they did grudgingly. I was very small, but my mother told me everything. The unkindness of her family, the fickleness and hypocrisy of worldly life, all her heartaches, all her sorrows. At a very young age, I witnessed many tears, and I learned early to deal with suffering. I resolved that my life would be based on eternal realities. I believe my steady progress to the Master began right then. As I grew into adolescence and womanhood, my independent nature strengthened. No one could force anything on me. But when I saw what I wanted and what I believed in, I went after it fearlessly. I had an insatiable desire for truth, and I read constantly and thought about the great thoughts of the world's great thinkers, especially religious philosophers and saints. I can't remember having a single thought that didn't have behind it the thought of God. I hungered to know more about God and how to bring Him close into my life. My mother said to me, "If you don't get married, you'll be lonely in your old age." I answered her, "I will never marry except for love." You see, my heart longed for true love, but I was utterly unimpressed by the members of the opposite sex. Whenever any young man asked me out, my answer was always the same: no. A friend of my brother's said to him, "Oh, it's going to be a brave man that marries your sister." And then I met Mr. Bizet. He was the kindest man I've ever known, and he won the hearts of everyone who met him, including mine. I was 30 when we got married, and he was still in law school when our son was born, Clark Prescott Bizet Jr. But we always called him Rex because he was the king of our household. Eventually, we moved to Seattle, where my husband practiced law, and then when he found his true calling as a teacher, he became the dean of the law school at the university there. From my study of the wisdom of India, I knew that in order to reach my divine goal, I would need a guru to discipline and guide me. I resolved that until I met such a one, I would make life itself my guru. I would receive every experience with the disciple's attitude, see every circumstance as a direct lesson from my guru. Still, I longed for that kind of training which would allow me to make rapid spiritual progress. When my longing became very intense, Master came to Seattle. When I heard that Swami Yogananda was going to be giving classes, I decided not to go myself. You see, I was concerned that my interest in this long-haired Hindu would cause unfavorable comment and would put Mr. Bazette in a difficult position at the university. So I asked Rex to go. Rex actually was Master's first student in Seattle. I thought Rex could learn and then he could teach me. When Rex came home from the classes, he was very enthusiastic, but he had taken a vow not to reveal the techniques to anyone. Later, he explained the dilemma to Master, and he received permission to teach me. Oh, never to be forgotten day. July 12th, 1925. The answer to all my prayers, the culmination of all my longing. It was the day I met Master for the first time. As soon as we saw one another, there passed between us the recognition of Guru and disciple from the past. Rex had invited Master to come to dinner at our house with a number of other guests. And as we sat around the table together, everyone was intrigued by a novelty salt shaker we had. It was weighted at the bottom, and when you knocked it over, it always came up again. And every guest at the table tried to lay it down, and it would go down and come up. When it was Master's turn to try, he stared at it intently for a few moments. And then he pushed it over, and it popped up. And he pushed it again, and it came up. And then again, and it came up. And then he laid it down, and it stayed down. The guests were astonished. When they expressed their astonishment, he said, the mind was determined that it would stay down. But later he said to me, I heard the voice of God say, for the benefit of sister, lay it down. Then he added, I knew then that God would draw you to this path. After dinner, I took Master to see my meditation room. Silently, he looked at the pictures of the holy men that I had there. And then he turned his back on the long row of windows, and softly he prayed for me and gave me my first blessing, which enabled me to hear the Om. For as long as we lived in that house, on the very spot where Master had stood, I kept a vase of orange flowers. The next night we again had guests for dinner, and Rex told them about the curious incident with the salt shaker and the Swami. And each of these guests also tried to put the salt shaker down, and always it came up. But when it was my turn, I laid it down and it stayed down. The guests were amazed. She can do it too. But you see, it was not I who had done it. It was Master's vibrations through me. From our first meeting, I have lived in the Master's vibrations. Those were years of almost ceaseless travel for Master. And after our first meeting, I did not see him again for 5 years. But I thought of him constantly, and we wrote often. During those years, I suffered a heart attack and other serious illnesses. When things became very bad, I wrote to Master and asked for his prayers. Just at the time I thought he might be receiving the letter, I was sitting and I was meditating, and my chair began to shake. I thought a big truck was driving by on the cobblestone street, so I looked outside, but there was no truck. And then waves of Om, thunderous waves, swept over under the house. Master's vibrations healed me. Years later, I wrote to him, "For 16 years I have followed you from point to point to point, so that I no longer feel your absence. For wherever you are, there am I also, standing invisibly before you, silently, humbly waiting for the moment when you will utter to me a word or give to me a smile." After Mr. Bizet's passing in 1932, at Master's invitation, I moved to Mount Washington. In my 60s, I became a monastic. And soon after, Master initiated me into the Venerable Swami order, giving me the name Gyanamata, which he said means Mother of Wisdom through devotion. But from our first meeting, Master always called me sister, and so I was known to all. I wrote to him, "God alone has become my motto, and a sign with those words hangs above my bed as a reminder of my vow never to allow anything, never for a moment to forget my divine goal, and never to allow anything to come between you and me, and I never have. You are the pole star of my life." Whenever Master would come into a room, I would approach him silently, touch his feet, and then leave. Naturally, someone asked me, "Why do you always leave when Master comes in?" Because I don't want to give him the slightest cause to feel he must pay any attention to me. I don't want him to feel he must utter to me even a single word. I was very fortunate from the beginning in this one respect, my understanding of the guru-disciple relationship. I never mistook it for a friendly one or a social one, nor is it for work or for service or for pleasure. It is solely spiritual, so deeply spiritual that it passes away beyond my sight, beyond my understanding. In the later years, illness kept me confined to my room almost all the time. Once, when I knew Master was leaving, I sent a message through Kamala and asked him as he was going out that day to pause and look up to my room where I would be watching for him at the window. That day, as he was driving out, he stopped the car, and for a long time we gazed at one another. When he lifted his hand in blessing, I thought my heart would burst for joy. Whenever Master sent me a blessing or a prayer or a healing, I was always conscious of receiving it. And sometimes, even at a distance, I found I was attuned to his thoughts. One Sunday morning, I was in my room as usual, and Master was lecturing at one of our churches. I turned to the nun who was with me and I said, "In his lecture, Master has just revealed what Divine Mother has said to him. dance of life, dance of death, know that these come from me and rejoice. What more dost thou want than that thou hast me? Later that day, Master came to visit me. I told him how much I liked Divine Mother's words. He smiled at me and said, "Ah, so you heard, did you?" One Christmas I wrote him a note and I left it outside his door. For recognizing me as your disciple from the past at our first meeting in Seattle. For taking me in when I had nowhere else to turn. For holding me to the path when, bewildered by an agony of pain, I knew not which turn to take. For everything that has come since. For all that you are, that I know you to be, and for all that you are, that I can never know. I offer you reverence, gratitude, devotion, love, but never enough. Oh, never enough. It could never be enough.
Good evening. It's a joy to be with you all, fellow disciples of our Master. I think it must be the greatest joy in this life, besides being with Master himself. I understand that you would like me to speak about my life and how I came to meet our Master. Well, my life before I met Master was fairly ordinary. Thank you, Durga. I was born on March 5th of 1892. That sounds like a long time ago now, doesn't it? I was born in a farmhouse on a little farm outside of the little country town of Archibald, Louisiana. My father worked that farm. They rented the farm. When I was born, their fourth child, they named me James Jesse. James Jesse Lynn. That sounds like a respectable name, doesn't it? But they didn't use it. I was just Jimmy. Jimmy for a long time. Considering my unremarkable beginnings. Some have called my early life remarkable. Little Jimmy, born in poverty, lifting himself up by his own bootstraps, precocious, spunky, taking fortuitous leaps, being offered positions of responsibility, and then great responsibility at a young age, until finally he finds himself, barely 30 years old, at the head of large business concerns in Kansas City. Insurance, railroads, petroleum. It's a long story, many chapters. And though you might consider such success exciting, as I certainly did at the time, it all pales in comparison now with the true success, the incomparable wealth that our Master has given to me since our meeting in 1932. Meeting Paramhansaji, I received a new life, became a new person. I scarcely recognized myself anymore. And later he gave me a new name, Rajarshi. Rajarshi Janakananda. I bet you never thought you'd hear Sanskrit pronounced with a Louisiana accent. Prior to meeting Master, my life was business. Business and more business. I was under great strain, there's no mistake about that, holding many large concerns at the same time. I tried to lighten it, tried to leaven the intensity of it all by taking up golf. You see, I was so habituated to focusing intensely. I would throw my whole mind, all my faculties at whatever was before me, even golf. I became tolerably good at that game, won a few tournaments, well, actually more than a few. But there's one thing I failed miserably at, relaxing. In those days, my nervous system was under such strain that I would become irritated at the drop of a hat. If I missed an important shot on the golf course, I was known to throw my club up in a tree and walk away. And so I bought an estate in the country where I hoped desperately that I could relax, force myself to relax. I had thought, I had assumed that money and business success would bring me a certain happiness, a certain settled well-being and security. And I must admit, there was some of that. But underneath it was that great stress and nervousness, and under that there was a hole, a kind of an empty absence, an emptiness where I thought by all rights there should be a fullness. What was I to do? The estate in the country was not helping much. I was at my wit's end. And then it happened. I was driving to work one morning when I saw a billboard up ahead. What a striking-looking woman, I exclaimed to myself out loud in the car. I craned my neck and gawked up, that long flowing hair and deep, remarkable eyes. You know, it must have been 3 or 4 days later. My eyes fell upon a newspaper announcement for a series of lectures by Swami Yogananda. Well, you know, in those days, most folks, especially in my part of the country, considered Hindus to be a bunch of snake charmers. And I don't think I was much different. But there's something that drew me, that called to me to go and hear this man speak. But my wife, Hilda, objected. Frida, you know, I don't know, I suppose I've forgotten her name because I've tried so hard to forget about her. What do you want to go hear some heathen blabbering at you for? He'll probably stand you up, turn you into a monkey, make you look more foolish than you already are. Our home was not a haven of peace and harmony. Frida did not mince words. So I did not go to the lecture that night. But the next time the second lecture was offered, I was determined to go. And when she saw my mind was set, she came along with me to protect me, she said. Well, do you know, we attended every one of those lectures. And then we signed up for the classes. And I have to tell you, I'd seen Master up on the stage perhaps 3 or 4 times when all of a sudden it struck me. Why? This saint up there on the stage is none other than that striking woman I saw on the billboard. You know, Master got the biggest kick out of that when I told him about it some months later. Well, it was difficult for me to sit through those lectures and those classes. Truly difficult. It wasn't because I wasn't interested. Of course I was. I was fascinated. But you see, as I told you in those days, my nervous system was so highly stressed that I was perpetually restless. My hands, they twisted and fidgeted. My eyes, they twitched. But listen, sometime during the evening of the second class, I became aware that I was sitting upright. My spine was straight, and I was motionless, absolutely motionless. Amazed, I glanced down at my hands, and they were still too. And while I marveled at this remarkable quietude that had come over me, I glanced up at the stage, and there I saw Master, and nearly the entire stage as well, bathed, suffused in a beautiful, radiant blue light. And in the midst of that light, there was the Master, looking down at me with that intense gaze of his, and he was smiling. Well, from that moment on, I've never been restless since. Almost never. In that moment, I realized I had found the golden secret, that intangible something that would give me true fulfillment. And it also struck me, clear as day, that I had found my guru. Well, as you can imagine, my snake charmer bias gave way fairly quickly to a great reverence for the saints of India as the embodiments of the highest of all sciences, it seemed to me, yoga, the science of soul exploration. Do you know that Master, the very first time that we met in private, after teaching me Kriya Yoga, was able to transmit to me the experience of samadhi, conscious union with God. That was the beginning of my yoga practice. I was very fortunate, I believe. You see, all those many years of intense concentration on business, and I mean intense concentration, I was now able to focus upon the techniques. And so I made rapid progress. Master spoke about it in a lecture not long after that. He said that during that first meeting that I had touched the Christ consciousness. My soul was ripe, he said. He also told me immediately that I must continue my full range of business responsibilities. I did not want to hear that. He said that this is what God wanted, but that I must also arrange my schedule to include a period of meditation every day. So I woke early, drove to the office in the dark every morning, and there I would write a note and place it on my secretary's desk. I am in conference. Do not disturb. Well, those people did not need to know that I was in conference with God. After this transformative spiritual awakening, just as before, I maintained a full schedule of business responsibilities for the next 20 years. Oh, at first, it was very difficult. I felt trapped in my old life, surrounded by people whose only ambition was worldly gain. I chafed in the harness. I strained at the bit. I wanted free. I wanted to be with Master. And when Swamiji left Kansas City, some weeks later, I was distressed, distraught really. We corresponded through letters. I wrote him letters. He wrote me letters. I think I wrote many more letters than he did. I brought one with me to share with you, which is characteristic of those early letters that I wrote to him. Only my love for Divine Mother is wanted. How distressed I am when I am pulled away from her and from communion with her loved ones. I cannot live of this world, and I would prefer not to live in it. I'm looking forward with deepest earnestness to my return to your side. Please, write often. Even short notes, or just a word from your heart, help to sustain me to a degree that I know it is hard for you to realize. Divine blessings, devotion, and boundless love. Your little boy, James. Master called me his little boy. He never called me Jimmy, thank goodness. But he called me his little boy. He would often say to me, I am in you and you are in me. I didn't have the foggiest idea what he was talking about. At first, at least. Well, I had an inkling. It was very poetically beautiful. But I didn't understand. But you know, as we practice these teachings over the years, the Guru changes us, does he not? Now, I feel Master inside of me all the time and all around me. Night or day, waking or sleeping, I close my eyes and Master's there. I open my eyes and Master's still there in all of you, in the trees, in the sky, in the sea, and beyond. Now, I have completely forgotten the story I was telling you. Oh, yes. Well, business was not my only field of challenge. Frida had taken Master's lessons and attended those lectures, but the time came when she saw me receiving so much spiritually that she began to feel that Master was taking me away from her. And to my very great dismay, she turned against Master altogether. It got to the point where she'd fly off the handle at the very mention of his name. And you know, several years before I met Master, I had had an association with another Hindu teacher, Dr. Gyani. And when the news of that association was made public in Kansas City, well, it affected my business dealings in a very serious way. And now, compounded by Frida's change of mind and heart, I was afraid, and rightly so, that if my association with Master was publicized similarly, that it may have grave consequences for my business. And worse, that it might affect my relationship with Master, or at least my ability to serve his work. I chewed hard on this for some time. I fretted and worried about it considerable. It was a serious concern. After some time, I decided to put it to Master. So one day while we were sitting side by side, I explained to him my concern. He was quiet for a moment, and then he said, "Follow me silently. Do not mention my name." I must admit that this did put my mind to rest somewhat, but a happy solution it was not. How was I supposed to keep secret and to keep hidden that which was the very core and foundation of who I was now? How was I supposed to keep secret my very reason and mission for being? Slowly, over time, I came to hold my inner life secret just as I held it sacred. And to shepherd that soul life and also my God-given business duties, for Master told me I must continue to work, to shepherd them from all affront and harm. And I went on to do what God had given me to do. Master often said to me, "You are in business for God. Nothing must hinder your fulfilling your mission on earth." My mission on earth. Master wrote to me several times over the years that he and I had incarnated together to establish this work of self-realization, and that was the principal reason for this incarnation. My mission on earth. Disciples hold me in high regard, but I did not teach. I did not write. I did not lecture, except to speak briefly now and then. But I did meditate with all my soul and all my sincerity. And I studied and practiced the teachings with great intensity. I attuned myself to Master, thinking about him day and night. I could do nothing else. And I worked and worked and worked for God. all that work was softened somewhat. Well, to a great degree, really. By weeks at a time, sometimes months, spent at Encinitas, meditating with Master. In order to spend as very much time as I could with Master, I eventually arranged for my nephew, Eugene, to take care of Frida and her concerns in Kansas City. My association with Master was kept so secret that even my wife, Frida, was not aware of one of the $1 million gifts that I had given to SRF until 1954, several years after Master's passing, when the news leaked out and it was publicized. Oh, that stirred up quite a hornet's nest among the relatives. Really more of a tornado, I should say. But we got through it. I'll never forget poor Eugene's face as he reported to me, "Aunt Frida hit the roof. You were lucky that you were not there to hear her." Oh, I remembered that tongue very well and my many years of suffering. I did not go back to Kansas City after that, in part, I suppose, to avoid those tongue lashings. Master said that I attracted such a wife in order to learn patience. God gives us the teachers we need. I worked and did my very best to support the work responsibly. The financial needs were ongoing and substantial. Master was constantly filled with inspiration and ideas. He was continually hatching new projects, and the resources needed for those projects was greater than I could meet oftentimes, at least in the short term, a fact which Master had a difficult time grasping sometimes. But slowly, surely, steadily, we built a solid foundation under the work. Foundations. That puts me in mind of many years before, back in 1935, when Master felt called to go to India. Now, that was an ambitious trip in those days, several oceans and half a world away. But Master was feeling the intense summons from his guru and from God. And so we purchased first-class passage for him and for his entourage. And I sent along a Ford automobile to make it easier for them to get around India and Europe. It was on that trip that Master met many of the spiritual luminaries and saints that he wrote about later in his book. And while he was away, we were busy cooking up a wonderful surprise for him. Master had often dreamed of and spoken of a retreat by the ocean. Well, we found the ideal property in the little seaside village of Encinitas, California, and we set right in, designing and building and then furnishing those retreat buildings, running circles around ourselves, trying to get ready in time for when he got back. You should have seen his face when he saw it. He was beaming, smiling from ear to ear. He couldn't stop smiling, couldn't stop exclaiming. And we were just as happy as he was, I think. Master and I meditated there by the ocean, day and night. Never before had I experienced such unity, such divine friendship, such communion, utter bliss. You must forgive me for speaking so much about myself. I'm not used to that. I don't think much about myself anymore. I don't have desires for myself left. But I do feel the strong desire that you should understand what Master has done for me. And along those lines, I'm feeling the inner permission just now from Master to tell you a story. It's a strange story, but a wonderful one. In August of 1952, my mother always taught me to put things back where I found them. In August of 1952, some months after Master's passing, it became clear that I was suffering from a brain tumor. And so on August 14th, an operation was performed to remove that tumor. And sometime during the operation, which was a difficult and delicate one, my soul slipped from this body. But Master slipped in. And he occupied this body from that day until about 7 days thereafter. Gyanamata witnessed it when she came to visit me in the hospital room. She said my back was turned to her when she opened the door, and I spoke in a very strong voice that sounded not like me, but like Master. "Give me a Kleenex." Well, the truth was that I had died on that operating table, and Master had stepped in at the crucial moment and then let me back in when things were all right. Several months after Master's passing, but before the operation, he was able to transmit to me a high state of samadhi, even from not being in the body. It happened in a strange way. I'd spent 4 days meditating intensively, but I saw no lights, had no visions, no sabbakalpa samadhi, not even any sense of grace, just a vast emptiness. And then on the 4th day, at the spiritual eye, I saw a tiny point of light. And I don't know whether I entered it or it engrossed me, but I melted into that light, and it swelled and expanded until it had assumed the dimensions of infinity. And that vision has never left me since. All the details of my ordinary life are projected against that great light now. Master and I shared a friendship on this earth that was rare. Lovers of God, we swam in the sea of God. You should have seen us. Walking hand in hand like little children, up and down the flagstone pathways in Encinitas, walking out across the grass to look out over the sea, our eyes alive with love, our souls shining like embers, glowing with the great friendship that we had in God. Master wrote to me in a poem one time, "You are forever free." Master wrote a number of poems to me over his life. I brought my favorite one with me to share with you. "You and I are forever free. My little one, you and I are one." Oh heavens, I don't need to read this. I've had it in my heart for so long. My little one, you and I are one in Mother Supreme, in her eternity's dream. And when this earth melts in cosmic dust, and our bodies dissolve as they must, still our souls, as a blended starlet, will shine, ever, forever expanding in the divine. Well, I don't think there's much more to say. Good evening, and all of Master's blessings be yours.
My birth name is J. Donald Walters. I was in New York City at the age of 22, and after I finished reading the autobiography of a yogi by Paramhansa Yogananda, my first impulse was to jump onto the next bus bound for California. But not wanting to act impulsively, I decided I should wait. And so I waited 1 whole day. Thereafter, for 4 days and 4 nights, my home was a succession of buses headed to California. I arrived in Los Angeles on the morning of September 11th, 1948. I was exhausted from my journey. There I took first advantage of an opportunity to shave and bathe, and then I continued on south by bus, 100 miles to Encinitas, the little coastal village or town where I understood from my reading that Yogananda had his hermitage. I approached that hermitage with bated breath. I recall from having just read the autobiography of a yogi that Yogananda too once visited a saint without informing him of his coming. Yogananda had not even reached the village when that man came out to greet him. Oh, would Yogananda? Does he right now know that I'm coming? And, well, will he come out and greet me? No such luck.
May I help you?
Is Paramhansa Yogananda in?
Oh, you've come about the water.
That day I had decided to dress in an all-white Palm Beach-style suit. And well, with my likely mispronunciation of this unfamiliar name, I guess I look like a utility waterman or something.
So, you've come to check the water?
No! Is Paramhansa Yogananda here?
Who? Oh, yes. No. He's away for the weekend. Is there something I can do for you?
Well, yeah. Well, no. I want to see him.
He's lecturing at our Hollywood church.
Hollywood? You have a church in Hollywood? It's becoming clear I am not making the best possible impression. Why?
I want to join his work.
Well, I want to join his work. I want to come and live here at the ashram.
Have you studied the printed lessons?
Printed lessons? I didn't know we had any lessons to be studied.
There's an entire course, and I think you would have to finish the whole thing before you could possibly live here.
Well, how long would that take?
4 years.
4 years? How might I get to this Hollywood church? Soon I was on my way back to Hollywood. On the way there, I alternated between bouts of heated indignation at this woman's presumption that I would not be able to come and live at the ashram, and desperate prayers for acceptance. This was the first time in my life I had ever wanted anything so desperately. I felt that I simply must be accepted. I simply couldn't be refused. At one point, I was thinking of my elderly hostess, and I remembered her eyes. Oh, her eyes. Her eyes are very calm, wise even. I certainly misjudged her. There's much more to her than I realized. Oh, forgive me. I should never have thought so unkindly of her. She was just doing her duty. I see now. She is certainly a great soul. Forgive me. Arriving in Los Angeles on September 12th, 1948, I went immediately to 4860 Sunset Boulevard, where the Hollywood Church was located. There, a woman greeted me from behind a long table in the back of the room. "May I help you?" "Yes, I'm here to see Paramhansa Yogananda." "Oh, well, I am sorry, but he will not be able to see you today. You can't see him because all of his time is filled." "Well, when would I be able to see him then?" "Well, let's just see." "Oh, I am sorry. But his appointments, they're fully booked for the next 2.5 months. 2.5 months? Yes. But I've come all the way from New York just for this." "Oh, I am sorry. How did you hear about him?" "Well, I read his autobiography just a few days ago." "Oh, so recently. And you came just like that?" "People usually write first." "You didn't write?" "Well, no, I didn't even think of writing." "Oh, I am sorry. But there is no way you can see him for at least 2.5 months. But in the meantime, you can come here to the church and attend the services. And you can study his printed lessons." Oh, printed lessons. Printed lessons. Thank you. Morosely, I wondered about the church. My mind was in turmoil, but I was praying desperately to Master. "You must take me. You must take me. You must. This means my whole life to me. You must take me. You must. You must. You must take me. You must." What? What if I'm simply not ready? Oh. Maybe that's the reason the doors are not opening for me. If this is the case, then I will move to the hills near Hollywood, and I will come to the church regularly, attend the services, and I will study the printed lessons. And I will wait. The Master will know it. He will know it when I am ready, and he will summons me. So, with that firm resolution in my mind, and with no small amount of disappointment in my heart, I headed for the door. No doubt I needed that lesson in humility. Perhaps things had always just come too easily to me, Or perhaps I was just too confident. At any rate, once I accepted that I just actually might not be spiritually ready, my circumstances changed dramatically. I had just reached the door, and the woman who had spoken to me earlier called out, saying that she had decided, since I'd come such a long way, that she would ask Master if he wouldn't see me that day. And then just a few minutes later, she returned, saying that he would see me next. Shortly thereafter, I was shown into a small sitting room. Oh, what large, lustrous eyes greeted me then. What a compassionate smile. I had never seen such divine beauty in a human face. Master seated himself in a chair, and he motioned me to a couch beside him. "What may I do for you?" Oh, for the third time that day, these same gentle words. But this time, how fraught with meaning. "I want to be your disciple." The reply just welled up from deep in my heart, irresistibly. I had never expected to say words such as these to another human being. Master just smiled gently. There ensued then a long discussion, interspersed with long silences, during which Master held his eyes half open, half closed, reading me as I well knew. Over and over again in my heart, I was praying, "You must take me, you must take me, you must. I know you know my thoughts. I can't say it out loud, I'd only weep. But you must accept me. You must." I agreed to see you only because Divine Mother told me to. It was not because you'd come so far. I only do what God tells me to do. There followed more discussions, some about my past. The Master seemed pleased with my replies and with my truthfulness. At one point, he said that he knew what I had just told him already, and he was just testing to see if I would answer him truthfully. Again, more silence, while I was praying fervently. "I am taking fewer people now." Oh my. Was this remark intended to prepare me for a letdown? "How did you like my book?" "Oh, sir, it was wonderful, wonderful." "That is because it has my vibrations in it." Vibrations in a book. At that point in my life, I had never considered that a book possessed vibrations. But even at the first reading, I felt that book, that his book, was almost alive in its power to convey not only ideas, but a new state of awareness. Then later, incongruously, absurdly even, the thought occurred to me that if I could demonstrate my ability to be of some practical use to him, he would be more likely to take me. Sir, I did find several split infinitives in your book. 22 years old, literarily untried, but already a budding editor. I have never lived down this faux pas. But Master took it with a sudden and then humorous smile. The motivation for my remark was transparent to him. More silence. More prayers. All right. You have good karma. You may join us. Oh, but I can wait, sir. I can wait. I had been hoping that he wouldn't take me only because I hadn't found some other place to stay. No, you have good karma. Otherwise, I would not accept you. Come now, stand before me. I give you my unconditional love. Oh, immortal promise. I could not begin to fathom then the depths of meaning in these marvelous words. Will you give me your unconditional love? Oh, yes, yes. And will you give me your unconditional obedience? Oh. As desperate as I wanted to be accepted by him, I felt I must be utterly honest. Sir, suppose sometimes I think you're wrong. I will never ask you to do anything that Divine Mother does not tell me to ask. When I first met my master, Sri Yukteswar, he said to me, "Allow me to discipline you." But I replied to him, "Why, sir?" "Because in the beginning on the spiritual path, one's will is guided by whims and fancies. Mine was too, until I met my master, Lahiri Mahashaya. Once I attuned my will to his wisdom-guided will, I was able to find true freedom. In the same way, if you will attune your will to mine, you can find freedom. Only by doing God's will can you become completely free. I see, sir. I see. I give you my complete, my unconditional obedience. When I met Sri Yukteswar, he gave me his unconditional love, just as I have given you mine. Then he asked me to love him in the same way, unconditionally. But I said to him, "Suppose, sir, I should ever find you to be less than a Christ-like master. Could I love you in the same way?" Sri Yukteswar looked at me very sternly. "I don't want your love, it stinks." I understand, sir. I do understand. Master had struck at the heart of my greatest weakness, intellectual doubt. I give you my unconditional love. Now, come, kneel before me. I did so, and Master had me repeat after him, in the name of Jesus, God, and the other gurus of our line, the vow of discipleship and the vow of renunciation right then. Next, he took the forefinger of his right hand and he put it on my chest, over my heart. And his arm vibrated, almost violently, for at least 2 minutes. And incredibly, from that moment onward, my consciousness, in some all-penetrating manner, was transformed. I left the interview room in a daze. It is unusual, to say the very least, for a disciple to be accepted so quickly. A few minutes later, Master came out from behind the open curtain onto the lecture stage, and smilingly he called out, "We have a new brother."